That means it'll be nice and warm.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that what they're trying to do?
Let me see here.
Should be grateful.
So that's yours. Okay.
The problem is they're not compliant hackers are damaged.
Is this your coat?
Yeah.
May
It's
I
nice
move
and
it?
warm too. This way it helps me keep my feet on the ground.
We're sitting, and then I put Richard's reports on the desktop,
Okay.
and then the other things Mayor had.
Okay. Well, thank you.
So that was an update from someone in the know, but it doesn't sound like it's a final decision.
We're streaming right now, because right, you're until, and Mike.
And me.
Mayor.
We have a two. So Mike can begin.
Where's Richard?
But if you want, might give it a minute or two. Just
4:30, yeah. Hey, you got the clock going. Was it just the battery?
Yeah, it was bad.
She did that. She did that early last week when we had our meeting.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, that's the mayor budget, I want to pull that up for some reason. And these two
So we're gonna have our meeting about the bridge upon Chris's request.
Yeah, I think that.
last week, because he said it was the
Check
last
with
week.
that this weekend, finding a meeting time. I think it might be Tuesday morning last night.
I missed that part.
Chris Rosenquist wants to meet with council about it.
As kind of legislative to serve as mediator.
I explained to him that the council's already endorsed reuse of the bridge and superintendent endorsed it too. So there's definitely resolve on our part in getting this done. We're not, I think there's a sense that we're somehow delaying. But
Well, there,
he's been hounding their legal.
I asked
I don't know
him,
if there'll be a chance,
Yeah.
but there's those.
Okay.
and the
We'll get
thing
him at
is,
some point.
how apprised of their legal situation were they when they made those grand announcements at the meeting last week, you know?
I suspect they went into executive session, said they don't like what the superintendent negotiated. And they came out of executive session and voted it down. But I don't know.
Yes.
No insight and just intuition.
Hey, Peter.
Michael, how are you? Thanks for doing that interview for my student. You bailed her out.
Last minute, eh?
She seemed kind of nice.
Now she is a nice girl.
Okay, it's 4:30 p.m., so I'd like to call to order this month's meeting of the Finance and Budget Committee. We will begin with a roll call.
Counselor Kelly,
Here.
Mayor Reed, Counselor Armstrong,
Here.
Counselor Ensel,
Here,
Okay, at this point in the meeting, we'd like to invite members of the public to come speak to us on our agenda items. Okay, seeing no one, we'll move right into reports from our department representatives and discussion with our counselors. So, Mr. Marks.
Not here yet.
Mr. Marks is
tell
not
Josh
here.
to stop.
Okay, well, I can speak to the year-to-date budget report that is on the screen in front of you, so I'll try to do that, at least until Mr. Marks gets here.
Here he is.
Okay. Mr. Marks. We're ready for you.
I heard it.
So do you have the report that I sent out last week?
Yes,
Here you go.
we do, Mr. Marks.
Don't have anything else done though, except for this.
That's okay.
Didn't get the back end of the expenses or the cost comparison for the consolidated departments.
Talk to us about expenditures versus revenues year-to-date, and did you have anything to say about net results in this report?
Let's see. So the numbers, who's running the screen?
They can.
I can.
But your voice should come over this.
The mic.
Okay. The numbers at the bottom are the important piece. And as we see, the general fund net results have dropped down to 988,814 positive. I don't know if we
Thank you,
can,
Josh. I was just about to ask you to do that.
don't know if we can pull up the September results, and show how much they've changed.
It's on the screen, Richard. I can bring it up.
like-
One of the things, I sent you both reports to show you the difference in October and September, and the change that's occurred in just 1 month.
Is it in a tab?
Which one?
Yeah.
It's up there. Mike, that was the other one I took a picture.
Yes.
Yeah, there it is.
I see why it was there now.
Yeah, it's been cut in half. It was $1,824,000 at the end of September, now it's down to 988, 989, call it, at the end of October. So that shows you just how fast things change this time of year. Because the tax revenues have stopped coming in, and the rest of the revenues we're waiting for are gonna be the balance of the sales tax, the balance of the AIM funding from the state. You know, those revenues are gonna have an impact, but now the expenses are really having an impact against the revenues we've already collected.
Richard, do we have any idea? We know we keep hearing that county sales tax revenues are well over projections. Do we have any idea of how much that will greatly benefit us?
4%.
Can you give me an estimate in real dollars?
I don't know the dollars, I know it's, last time I looked, it was 4% higher than last year at this time. 4.3, I think. Not a lot of dollars. I can't recall the numbers. Anyway, as you look at these figures, I mean, I got the September's with me. Rec complexes degenerated to $183,000 loss versus 64. And of course, the big fact there is their debt service came down like an anvil in the month of October. And you can see it in the cash report that I'm sending out to you every week, how they got negative $180,000 in cash roughly. It's because they had a $145,000 debt service payment that just whacks them really hard. Parking lot.
Was that from the marina? What was the
It's
source
from,
of
it's
that?
from all the financing that they've been doing since 2012 capital improvements. You know, rec facilities, marina, Dock Street building, gym improvements, gym equipment. So it's a big nut to crack. Parking lot's 42,000 ahead. At this point, it was 30,000 last month, so they're improving. Water's 88.6 versus 54 last month, so they're improving too. Sewer's up to 932,000, and that's an increase up from 786, and library's 54 versus 31. So the ones that are hurting the most, obviously, the general fund and the rec complex fund. In general, it's because, you know, the revenue sources are slowly drying up, which they do every time, at this time every year.
Mm-hmm.
And as well, the debt service payments are hitting hard. We just had another one go out today for $300,000. Most of that was MLPs, but we had one November 1st. That's not in these results. So anyway, it's not over yet for the year. I'm still thinking we're going to see our surplus in general of, you know, $700,000 to $800,000 like was budgeted, depending on what we do with certain other expenses. Now, the expenses that are hitting us hard right now in the general fund that we have to take out and have to book as receivable are all the stuff that we're doing for the DRI, for Whitenburg, Crane, Saratoga. The number on that last month, in total, where did I leave that? Totally unprepared for this tonight, by the way. Just in case you didn't
Sorry.
notice.
What
Had
is,
had
what
about
is
3
generally,
dozen
Matt,
interruptions today.
Matt, would you know, with those expenses that we're incurring initially with the DRI, When would be the, basically the
Reimbursement?
Reimbursement for those expenses? How,
We're initially going to start with quarterly reimbursements. Steve Schweber is currently working on our first submission for the Saratoga contract. There are two separate structures. For DOS, you are allowed to submit periodically for expenses. For the ESD contracts, that is Dog Street and Durkee Street, they are project completion based, so you don't get the money back until the whole project's done, or at least the part of the project that you contracted to complete with them at the time.
so we could theoretically get some reimbursement back from these initial expenses that we will incur? Or
Yeah,
are
absolutely.
incurring?
Yep.
When are we gonna make our first reimbursement?
I'm hoping to have it done by the end of November.
Yeah, the numbers that I did last month, they haven't changed. The DRI costs that we have in the CD fund, or CD department in the general fund, about 680,000, that's the encumbrances. It's 230,000 for Saratoga, 300 for White Burke, and 150 for Crane. So those are gonna be consistent numbers, because even though we've done some spending, it's still gonna be the encumbrances. At the end of the year, the plan is to take those out of expense and put them into receivable. Provided you guys tell me we're gonna get reimbursed for all of it.
We will.
The state is gonna guarantee that, right?
I'm not guaranteeing it.
No, the state of New York is gonna guarantee that, right?
Theoretically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that'll be the plan there. So that's still weighing the numbers. Right now, when you look at the departmental expenses, you get $1,778,000. These are the departments that have been consolidated versus $1,401,000, but you have to add back $680,000. So it's gonna still put us about the same place we were last month, about $280,000. Yeah, about $280,000 to the good for the consolidated departments from last year, over last year's expense versus this year's expense. And the benefits for those same departments, for rec complex and for general, about $130,000 ahead. So we're still tracking to the positive as far as the consolidated departments. So, if you look at the next page,
If you look at the next page.
if you look at the next page, this is October of 2017. It's pretty evident that 18 is doing better than 17, except for the rec complex. The problem with the rec complex last year is the general fund was funding a lot more. Remember I said that it was a huge amount of money more.
One other quick thing on that, didn't last year,
We
there was a transfer from the general fund to cover the last 4 years of.
Not in these numbers yet.
Not these numbers,
No,
okay.
at the end of the year. So during the year, we were funding so that there would be a surplus in the rec complex. Like you see, 135 versus this year's negative 183. This year's bare bones, only $260,000 funding. It was 400 and some thousand, I think 470, 430. Because then we made another 145 in the year, made it 575. So that's why it was in a positive situation. It was all coming out of the general fund. Of course, you see the general fund results were down at 631 versus this year at 988.
Now, rec complex we're talking, that includes beach as well, correct?
Yes. Does include the beach. The water fund isn't doing as well as last year at this time, unfortunately. I have to look at why that is. They were $221,000 surplus last year. They're only $89,000 surplus this year at this point. To see if that was a timing issue on when we booked the debt service, that could be the impact there. Sewer's a little bit behind last year at this time. The library is well ahead of last year at this time. Any specific questions that anybody would have about the numbers? I will finish the report so that you have the expense comparisons at the end, so we can see which individual expenses are driving the variances. And then also, I'll send you the report on the department comparisons. Try and get those out to you tomorrow.
Or that library sure
Richard?
runs a tight ship, huh?
They do.
And this is,
Yep.
overcoming.
I guess I'm a little lost here, perhaps. The rec complex is showing the actual, the expenditures are under,
That's last year.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm looking at
That's last
actual,
year.
right.
That's October
Actual, right.
2017.
From last
yeah.
year. They're under, oh, I see, okay. Our
Yeah.
expenditures are way up compared to our, yeah, okay.
Yeah, the revenues were really high last year. Let's go back up to the
Okay.
other, can we go back up to the
The
first
other
one?
report, Richard, or
Yep.
same report, but up a page?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we have any idea what the increase was? I mean, you had mentioned, but
See, the
those
rec
numbers,
complex expenditures
Right.
are 871 this year, and they were, no, excuse me, they're 686 this year. Where are we?
This
So-
is
You go up to 18?
October of 2018. I'm sorry, September, or
October of 18.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. I'm looking at September. Okay. So 871 is the expenditures this year, 819 was last year. A little bit higher this year than last year, but the last year's revenue is 953 compared to 688 this year.
right,
Shows
so
you the difference
there's
in the contributions from the general
contributions,
fund.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, I mean, that's a significant shortfall.
Mhm.
Or I shouldn't say shortfall, but a significant difference between the two. What can that be attributed to?
The general fund is only contributing $261,000 to the rec complex fund this year, where last year
So
was
it shows that the
budgeted
rec
474.
complex is losing hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
Well, recreation is always subsidized from the general fund.
Yeah.
Richard's saying they're just not
But
subsidized as
but I
much
guess
this year.
my question is, I mean, we're talking certainly within the realms of a budget. When you look at that much of a difference, I think that's something that needs to be looked at.
Well, the budgeted amount for transfer from the general fund to the rec complex fund this year is in the $575,000 range again.
Right.
So it won't
So-
be in a deficit like this. So the 261 that was budgeted for transfer last year was way under what was actually gonna fund the rec complex operations.
Right, and we're trying to give them a couple of years under this new approach to turn things around there, and we really need to give them a little bit of time to see if they can accomplish, at least from my perspective.
Did you? Are you kidding?
So, is that?
Yeah, no,
answer?
that's fine. I'm just, I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure I was
Yeah, it's a
interpreting
big
it
difference.
correctly.
It's a big difference. We're going back to the funding level of 2017 at the end of the year for 2019, which includes that 140-some thousand to use to pay off a 5-year deficit. So the funding level for 19 is that high. So.
Any further questions for Richard? Well, let's move on to the next part of the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you,
very
Richard.
much, Richard.
Thanks, Richard.
I didn't do much.
No, you did a great job.
As a whole.
All those interruptions.
Just regurgitating numbers. Any fool can do it.
Do you mind if we, rather than go to 2, do 3? Because it seems like it will be, something we can get out of the way, so we don't have to do it under the gun by the time we have to adjourn.
I believe we can do that.
All right. I'll just say for number 1,
Well, let me just announce that at the request of Councilor
Okay.
Armstrong, we will move from item number 2 in the agenda down to item number 3, which is to review the agenda items that will be brought forth to the council tonight. So
Thank you.
please proceed.
Well, I just was going to speak to 2 and 3, and so if you want to, you can speak to 1. That's just an agenda item we need to move forward, right?
Well, the first request is to put the menorah in Trinity Park. Does anyone have any questions or concerns about that? Okay, go ahead, Councilor Armstrong.
Thank you. So, Councilor Insel and I have a little report to make regarding the various documents that have been placed before you for consideration. The first of which was last week.
2 weeks ago.
It was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. And as you learned last week, we were making other revisions. At Councilor Kelly's request, we didn't withdraw or vote the item that was on the table off because you, Mike, wanted to compare our various proposals.
Yeah.
So I'm going to admit that the latest version that Beth put on our agenda was made in complete error as a result of lots of documents transferring between people, and the resulting confusion brought about an error. That's another way of saying, in a really abstract way, that I goofed up. But I had good reason, okay? So I'm going to suggest that we take both of those requests off the table or off the agenda, and that our accurate request and proposal will be up for initial consideration next week. We hope we can get you the document well before our early meeting on Tuesday. And then we'll go forward.
So the request is to take the 2 items on the agenda tonight off the agenda? And not-
No, just the one initial consideration that is on the agenda.
Number 2 is.
7A,
Not number 3, because that's from Mayor Reed.
7A
Jumping
and
down.
7B, I believe you're talking about, Rochelle, and then to take,
Not 7A.
7A.
We will take that, either take that off the table or not. 7, help me.
7C.
The item for initial consideration is what I thought we were dealing with here. Yes, 9.
So those aren't on the table, so
9.
there's only one item that's on the table, that's
The original.
The original.
Mhm.
Then there's 2 that are up for initial.
Correct.
B and C are off the table because they're part of the.
Yeah.
So I guess the question, I think, Rochelle, your question is, I guess, to Mike, would you like to keep 7A, which was the original one presented 2 weeks ago? Would you like to keep that on the table until the next document is presented? And then, correct me if I'm wrong, Rochelle, we're asking for 7B to be taken off the table, no?
Almost, I think your question was almost there, but.
No, that's a procurement policy.
Yeah, that's a.
Oh, okay.
So you don't have, you'd only have to.
So the big
address-
question is whether we want to take 7A off the table.
Because the other 2 aren't for initial.
Correct.
Well, it sounds like with some continued uncertainty about what will be in the finished product, that maybe we ought to leave 7A on, leave it tabled until such time as you're ready to present.
Yeah,
What you
I
think
mean,
is
my
the
only
finished
argument would be that the committee has authored these proposals, and the committee wishes to bring 7A to the table and vote on it. And I personally don't want that to be considered anymore, because we've worked very hard to arrive at a very different proposal,
So you would suggest we take this off the table,
7A.
And vote on it.
vote on it tonight?
Mm-hmm.
You're hoping that we vote no,
I hope so.
okay?
Yeah.
But
With the understanding that we have another
Proposal
proposal
coming
that
forward.
will be coming up for initial consideration on Tuesday.
So tonight's initial consideration proposal then should be stricken because
Yes.
it will change
That-
rapidly?
That's our recommendation, exactly. And it looks as though we have another item for initial consideration that, now that, can we agree that that's the course we're going to take regarding our proposals?
Yeah.
And then we have one from the mayor that maybe we can take a look at.
Mayor, would you like for us to go forward with your resolution for initial consideration?
I think that what I want to be sure is at the end of this, that, as I've always asked, that we liberalize certain provisions of the benefit for managers that they've been asking for and that we all agree, and not jeopardize anybody else's standings, for instance, the level ones. So the purpose of mine was simply what I've been articulating for a long time, that there's general agreement on liberalizing sick leave, general agreement on providing health care for unmarried spouses.
But those have always been a part of our proposal, so I don't understand what uncertainty you are suggesting we may have to deal with.
General agreement on prorating sick and vacation days, general agreement on expansion of personal and bereavement days, and general agreement on the 26 pay periods for longevity, and avoid some of the problematic things that I think there is a difference of opinion on with regard to who's a level 1, who's a level 2, what are the increases in pay each year, et cetera. These are the things we all agree on. So I thought I'd hate to see the whole baby be thrown out with the bathwater.
Well, I really
these
don't
other-
know what
there's
our
also
points
some-
of departure are. I am a little surprised that all along, the council has been tasked by charter to set up this policy, and then now we have one that you suggest we need to consider because ours may not be adequate. I'm having trouble with that.
I think there's a question too. I mean, you mentioned some questions about level 1s and level 2s. I think there's also a question about level 3 and 4. For example, I guess we as a committee needed clarification. Is Matt a 3 or a 4? Is a community development director a 3 or a 4?
I'm a 3. I was hired March 5th. The effective date for the level 4 resolution was April 6th.
That's correct.
Okay.
And I don't know, Mike, did you have something?
Is concerning the other initial proposal here, the very last paragraph.
Which one are you referring to?
The mayor's proposal here, there's a line in there about the bi-weekly and the longevity, but it's saying that it's not considered part of our salary, which is a big deal.
I think, and that's something that I think just came up today. I think that's been a common element from all the various proposals.
It was.
Right.
It was.
Is longevity currently part of that?
Yes.
Longevity is
think it ought to be.
part of that
I
calculation.
think it ought to be, so.
It's included as salary for retirement purposes, so it's part of it.
Okay.
Okay.
That's just a misunderstanding then.
Well, that's a big one.
It is.
Big one, very big.
So anyway,
So, I mean, those would be also some of the things that we will be addressing that's why we kind of want some answers, that we're bringing this out, because we would like to craft, hopefully, what we would think would be the final resolution to be acted on, hopefully Tuesday.
I just had a-
I'm sorry, we're not talking about crafting a resolution? Or
this is
setting-
up for initial, the mayor's is up for initial.
This
and
is the mayor's.
The one we just read.
No,
Number 2,
the one that's on the agenda.
request for, yes.
It's on tonight's agenda. And then, I guess, while you look at that, what's inadequate about the committee's most current iteration? Or inappropriate? Or?
There were some recent suggested changes as of yesterday afternoon that I don't think were implemented into that document. I think that's what Rochelle's talking about.
Okay. But have those since been added? Or has the committee had time to?
Well, we just came to the realization that the wrong document was being circulated.
Right, I knew that.
So I haven't had a chance to come up to speed with that.
Okay.
So what I did to help myself understand what's going on here is that I made a chart, as I often do.
Good.
And I made a chart that had a column in it I called 11.6. That was the last proposal that I believe had been vetted by Dean and
That was last week then.
yeah, last week. And then there's another one that I labeled 1114. And I believe that's the one we're talking about tonight, although we've decided not to talk about it.
Because
Is
we
that right?
talked, because what happened is Dale, Peter, and I spoke to Dean. We made a document up based on his recommendations as a result of that conversation. But in the process of readying it for the agenda, another document snuck in, and that's just a clerical error. So there's a lot of commotion over what our actual most recent recommendation is because of that error.
So the one I was reading last night that you emailed us.
Right,
that's
that
not
was
the
sent
right
out
one.
when Beth
Right.
sent the materials, yeah. That's
And-
inaccurate.
And I think also, just based upon some of the information we just received regarding the longevity being factored in as part of the retirement, I think those are elements that we want to possibly include into the new resolution that we hopefully will have for Tuesday.
Remember, Monday I have to send the agenda.
That's right.
For others.
For Monday.
We really need it Monday.
Now,
How about tomorrow?
can someone help me out with this? What is the purpose of doing a new manager compensation package? Because I remember last February when I was appointed to the council, Mike, Dale, and Peter were working on one, and it was my understanding, although I was never involved with any of these, that the reason for doing that was to, we had all these levels, and it was kind of like to clean up the levels, try to bring everyone on the same manager compensation package, including people coming on, and that fell through, and level 4s were created so that we could hire people. And unless the one that we're going to be talking about on Tuesdays is wildly different than the one I was reading last night, I don't see anything about combining. It still keeps 4 levels. So I'm just wondering what is the purpose of it? Because I have a hard time. I don't think we should be changing anyone's benefits if they signed on and took a job for an agreed upon terms, that retroactively changing them. And it's my understanding that from reading the manager compensation package as put forth, and I know it's different, that it doesn't touch upon level 4s, it's just changing, and I could be wrong, unless
Level
the
3
manager
terms.
compensation package for level 3.
Right.
And I'm a little uncomfortable with changing managers' compensation packages. I don't know if it changes retirement benefits, which might run amok up the Taylor law.
There's nothing that's being diminished.
Diminished in regard to retirement.
Because I'm concerned, because it seems to have started, and in certain ways, fear and uncertainty amongst people, and I'm wondering
A lot.
if we're not cleaning up and not making anything more organized, what's the point of going forward with the manager compensation package? I'm not saying it was perfect the way it was, but me as president of MLD, I'm concerned because I do know that our CFO, and I haven't spoken to her personally, was concerned that maybe her retirement packages could change. And that kind of uncertainty genders a lot of poor morale and things
Well,
like that. So I'm wondering why
From
we
the
Well, here's the other
outset,
part.
from the
Here's-
outset, we always agreed that level 1's benefits and salaries should never be touched.
Deviated.
There was a problem with the way in which this latest version, or maybe it was even last week's version, chose a framework of dates at which this agreement, on which this agreement would be based. And there was misinterpretation as a result that I think there were reactions to, despite assurances. So
I'm a little confused about that too. I wasn't quite sure who you were targeting in this, this new round of proposals. Is it just level 3? Are they the only people who will be considered in this new package, whatever it ends up being?
yes.
Well, my
Just
question is,
level
why
3.
are we just, I'm confused at why we're doing this at all, if we're still gonna have level 4s, we're still gonna have level 3s. Maybe I wasn't made adequately aware of what the primary purpose.
Well,
of it
actually,
is.
what happened over the course of our work was that the objective did change. The original purpose was to eliminate levels and combine them and find a unified way to describe the benefits. And there were some sticking points in negotiations with various interested parties that led to the development of this new idea.
And it's my understanding that actually this would also, not only trees, but would also be, perhaps I'm wrong, I was thinking it was also for fours with the exception of the salary piece.
My understanding from what I read last night, it specifically excluded level 4s, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm wondering why we're doing this at all, if it's causing a lot of disharmony. I've gotten calls from constituents worried about this issue. If we're not combining levels, what's the point of even doing it at all?
Well, you used the term, I do still think there's the need to liberalize certain benefits. There's things that the managers have asked for some time, and I think that we can afford, in comparison to other municipalities, to offer that to them. That was the purpose of mine, to absolutely not.
And you're building entirely off of what our suggestions were, right?
Well, I don't know. I'm building them up of what I've been saying for the last 6 months, what I think we need to do to liberalize certain benefits. And I'm only focusing on expanding certain benefits. So I agree we shouldn't be taking anything away, but I also agree that there's certain ways we can liberalize certain benefits to make it easier for our managers, more clear-cut for our managers, and without having to take anything away from it. So to me, that was relatively controversial. And if what you're suggesting is there overlap between what you want to do and what I'm proposing to do? Absolutely there's overlap. There's many things we've been discussing for quite a while, like liberalizing sick leave, allowing people to accrue vacation and sick days from the very beginning of the year rather than having to wait a whole year to be entitled to them, to come up with longevity that adds to their base salary, because I certainly agree with that, and is on every paycheck, not coming up twice a year, etc. These are things that we all agree upon. And they don't touch some of the controversial things that your committee ought to keep working on. So that was my approach. I don't think we should just freeze everything. There's ways we can actually also make it better unambiguously in everybody's mind. And you know, as an economist, they call that a Pareto improvement, right? There's things that we can do to this that everybody's going to say, yeah, these are good. But there's some other things that some people are going to say these are good, and other groups, maybe the taxpayers might say, can we really afford this? That's what you're referring to if your constituent is calling you. There's other controversial elements, but there's some things that we can all agree upon. Why wouldn't we just have a simple resolution like the one I'm proposing that does those things, and then you all can continue on in your work? That's what I'm trying to accomplish.
I'm sorry, what's the one you're composing?
It's right here in the agenda. I'm confounded, I'm confused. I understood that it was council's project mandated by the charter to work on this agreement, and I feel
So
I don't know what I feel.
Well, the committee, though, can spend now with the mayor's proposal and with all the other iterations, can work over the next day or two to try to meld it all together, right?
And have something to Beth for Monday.
I think the thing that you want to avoid is to not carefully examine what each part of the final resolution will do. And I know that you've done a lot of homework here, so please don't take this the wrong way. But in the November 6th proposal, the one I call November 6th, you had carefully vetted all that with Dean, and I think Brian Kramer weighed in on it, and I believe Richard Marks had made some comments about its financial ramifications. And and that seemed like a really, really good thing. The one that came out on the 14th, however, you know, came without any of that previous vetting. At
That's
least-
not true. We met
Oh.
with Dean. And
Oh.
as I said, the one that
Okay.
came out on the 14th was the wrong version.
Okay, okay.
So that's unfortunate.
My caution is to please use the 11-6 approach and vet this financially, legally.
It's a process
every
we've
which
gone
way.
through all along, and we'll continue to
And I
do
guess
so.
my wish is to give Rochelle, Dale, and myself till Monday or Monday.
What
that
has
we
to be
can-
Monday? Before 12 or 4?
To come
You have
up
to
with
have it Monday,
Monday at what time?
a document that
12?
3:45.
3:45?
kind of hearing,
your-
I guess what I'm saying, Mike, is hearing, again, some of the things that we found out tonight based upon our
About
our
longevity.
And even after
about the
consultation with
longevity and things
Dean,
like
I might
that,
add.
Yeah.
that need to be put in.
Well, I personally like Patrick's suggestion to don't do anything. What we have now seems to be working, and please consider that as in your committee. Please consider that possibility as well. Don't do anything.
But also, I still maintain we should liberalize some of the things that we do agree upon that the manager's been asking all along. I just don't see, I don't think we should absolutely not do anything. There are things we can do that everybody agrees to, and they're not controversial. Why wouldn't we do those?
I agree with you, Colin, and quite honestly, I think some of the things were not all that, I guess, if this was a negotiation between unions and the city, we're not far off here. I think we're very close. It needs some
And
some
something-
fine tuning.
And something has to be done, because even just Mike, when you said, don't do anything, you know, just looking out at the audience of any managers present, I'm seeing head shaking and eyes rolling. So I think something has to be done.
Well, I think what you might be seeing is just some frustration in that this has taken so long, and they may be feeling a little fatigued from all this.
Jonathan, do you have something?
Okay to approach?
Sure.
I'm fine with it.
Sorry, I'll be quick. I've been involved in this a number of times over the last several years. So Mike, you and Dale and I did a lot of work earlier this year. And so the question we've always asked ourselves is what you just asked, Councilman McFarland, is what are we trying to do here? And we're hearing all the pieces of it, but I think to try to frame it succinctly, we're trying to do several things. One is to have one benefit package moving forward. Police and fire and the building inspector, by attrition, they're going to be gone soon.
Level
And
ones.
in level ones, that's not going to apply. So we're going to have one package moving forward. So I believe it does cover level fours also.
Well, everyone I've seen is,
Don't think so.
Okay, so that's the goal. Whether it says that or not, I don't know, but we need to get it to the point where it does say that. So that was the first thing. The second big thing is to make sure we can attract future managers from the largest candidate pool possible, including from the unions. And right now, the way the benefit package is structured, nobody in the union is going to come out of the union and into management. So that being said, we've been trying to mirror the union benefits to the extent that they don't cost the city any money. And it seemed like that was there. There are aspects to the union benefits that would cost the city a lot of money. Payouts of sick time, health insurance until death, all that. That hasn't been part of the packages. So in effect, what it's doing is going to be eliminating the big payouts that managers have historically received. So you're actually going to be making sure that you don't get back into that game. So those are the four big things right there, is to have one benefit package moving forward. It's going to take a few years till we get through attrition. The second is to ensure that we can attract from the biggest candidate pool possible, including from the union. And again, that's done by improving the existing package with no-cost items and not including the ones that cause the big payouts.
Do you think the majority of management agrees with what you're saying?
I believe so, but I can let other people speak.
No. This is the time when we need to hear what you mean.
Mike, you had your hand up before.
I was just going to tell you, I think the manager's benefit package should represent the union that they oversee. It should be the same thing, identical. Come on, you're taking what, sick days, you're taking vacation days. If the manager's got X amount of days coming, based on the union contract, let him have it, because he oversees all people. Why are we changing everything now? You think you're gonna save nickels and dimes? Come on. Come on.
Now, is that how, the other thing I don't see is what the manager package is now, or what we're changing. And I don't know, because I haven't been involved in any of the discussions. I can compare these two, but I can't compare it really to what it is right now, so I don't really know what it is right now. The other question I have, and I see where John's going with this, we want managers to come up through the unions, and why are we excluding the police and firefighters, especially the police, because it seems that that's where we have, that is the biggest problem. We have 2 vacancies in lieutenants, and no one wants to jump up from sergeant and leave the union and become a police lieutenant.
They have their own, historically have had their own agreements that are not consistent with those for other level 3 managers.
And there are some state laws, I believe, that we have to follow for police management to make sure, for example, I believe that the chief is always paid at a higher level. Of course, we made that decision ourselves a while back. So they are a little different.
Do you have any problem with that the managers get, that the union members that are on them get?
Well, I mean, many
What's
of
the problem with that?
many of the provisions we made in this latest version
Mirror.
make those benefits consistent with union benefits.
Some not.
Some, right, and we're not,
They're
there's,
trying to change things, and I said it not a very nice way, and I won't say the word bullshit to them. Okay?
I appreciate that. Thanks for the warning.
And they put time in these managers. These managers run these departments. They have these people under them. It should be the same benefits that you're overseeing. What is so difficult about that? What's the big loss of money?
Well, Mike, just to say that, you know, yeah, we can do, that's a great idea, would be the last thing we would need to do. We would need to find out how much it costs. And then what does that do in our relationship to the unions? We're trying to negotiate with unions all the time and make agreements on time off and pay. And so how does that change that dynamic? We need to know those kinds of things before we say yes or no to any proposal.
Yeah, I see, every time I see a little proposal, the thing that you people put together, you never see any dollars and cents. What the savings is, what the cost is.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, let's do that, so we know what we're talking about.
We have those charts that we can provide to you.
I hope you do, okay?
Well,
Yeah.
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 You want to say it again? Yeah.
Will there be any further discussion of item number 2?
No.
All right. I think we've discussed Mayor Reed's item for initial consideration as well. So with your permission, we will move back to number 2 on the Finance and Budget Committee agenda. 2-2, that was the council to hold 2019 budget session. We have about 13 minutes left before the main meeting begins. So does anybody have anything you'd like to talk about? DPW, I see here, and community development budgets. Please.
And you did ask DPW to go back and take a look at their budget in more detail, and they did come back and send you another document around, so I thank you all for sharpening your pencils on that. I think you produced a really good product.
I guess one of the things I wanted to bring up was, and I know I had indicated before, about the 2.5% increase, as well as a $1,000 bonus award in the community development office. I know last week Richard had indicated that that was comparable to steps. And I guess my feelings along that, and it, you know, is that my understanding is level 4 was created so that we could kind of be able to adjust what the percentages for salary increase and so on is. And I do understand that some of the hirings were at above what the previous person in that position held. And I also do understand that that was based on an anniversary date, so the 2.5% wouldn't be completely within the 2019 budget. But doing some calculations for the 2019 budget, it looks like it's $29,000 to $3,000 increase. And I guess, you know, we just signed an agreement with one union to go to the 0.5 to 1.5% CPI differential, and I think that would fall more in line with where I would feel comfortable with. So I guess my request would be to maybe take $2,000 from the salary portion in community development out of that budget.
You know, if you make a comparison to CBA employee, not only do they get the increases based on the new COLA formula, but they also are getting regular step increases, something that our managers in level 4 don't have. So the whole purpose of this was to have that discretion to give them the raises they deserve. And Richard has said to you last week that comparable employees were getting raises of that level when you include longevity, pay scale, etc. So we have to be able to treat our level 4 employees. I mean, you all passed 6 months or so that provision to allow that discretion. We're exercising that discretion for the first time, and you know, I think that we deserve, I deserve to be offered some deference to figuring out what these individuals are worth, not using them as a casualty in some other discussion.
But it's also our position as a council to set the budget.
It absolutely is.
So, and I guess I also have issue with a bonus being awarded, an additional $1,000 bonus. I think that sets a precedent, and a dangerous one at that, not only now but in the future, and kind of, and I can't speak for them, but I think if I was a manager, it would kind of slap me in the face that, oh, someone's getting a bonus besides a salary increase.
Counselor, the person you're talking about, from the day they were hired for the first 14 weeks of their employment, did not take one single day off, including weekends. So I think a $1,000 bonus is more than enough compensation for the time that they spent.
Well, I'm sorry, Matt, we have to disagree.
I think, Peter, one thing we should all do is go back to that April resolution that created level 4 and see what we agreed on back then, and then decide, did Matt Miller in the administration of his department follow our requirements that we set forth in that resolution? If he did, I think it's pretty much hands off from there. Unless you want to change the resolution, of course.
Well, Mike, I'm not. To me, this has nothing to really do with the resolution. This has something to do.
Well, it has everything to do with the resolution.
It has something to do with the budget.
Those are the guidelines we provided
the budget.
Those are the guidelines.
We can set the budget as a council. The mayor submits to us his proposed budget. Well, we can adjust the budget anywhere we like, and we have the right to approve the final budget.
Let's pull up that resolution that we passed that provided guidance to our department heads back in April and see if Matt did what he was supposed to do. I think
I
you
have no
did.
doubt that Matt did not do what he, to me,
So
that,
if we
that's
don't
not
like
the point.
if we don't like what Matt did following our guidelines, then we need to change our guidelines.
And I certainly appreciate your fiscal conservativeness, and you said a number of times that you don't want to see those moving trucks taking people out of
Absolutely.
the city of Plattsburgh.
And I'm not saying $1,000 is going to be a moving truck.
And we'll revisit that, but this isn't something that is going to break the bank. It's
I-
something they budgeted for. This is something that I think we get an incredible amount of value for, and I'm going to stand by it.
And I certainly agree with that. It's not, but I still think also it could be a precedent setting where, number one, we're asking the unions to go between 0.5 and 1.5%.
Plus
But
step increases.
also to issue a bonus, I think is really a bad precedent to set, especially when, and Matt, you made a point that the person didn't take a day off for 14 days. Well, we have, weeks, I'm sorry. We have
Other
managers that are working 20 hours of overtime in 4 days and 5 days that are,
But they get the step increases, and their step increases aren't.
but there's also an increase, a 2.5% increase here that's equal to the, that
To
would
the
be equal
step.
to the step. My issue is with the bonus.
So it's there, it's just in different form.
And some managers don't get step increases anymore. There's only a few level threes that still are in the scale to get steps. And if Matt is included in there, he's gonna get one in 24 months from his hire date. Because he's reached level 7, so that says 24 months for the next step. But there's certain of us that have reached the maximum steps and we don't get raises. And the only thing I wanted to bring up about this, which, in addition to what John said and what everybody else has said, this whole discussion of management pay and benefits goes back to 2015. The previous mayor was trying to standardize things. And one of the main concerns was there were no raises for managers. We hadn't had a raise since 2012. And we still have.
Well, and that's
And
provided in
that's
this
where the
latest
scale.
version.
So that was the point of that discussion where it started. Now, how it's migrated into, all about benefits, it's just because of the fruitfulness of all the discussions. But originally it was, what about the managers not getting pay raises? There's only been 4 raises for managers since I started working in 2007. 2 changes in the scale and 2 stipends.
We've considered that. We know we've addressed it.
So that was one of the points. And of course, the unions are continuing to get their raises, people who work for us, 1.5%, 2%, whatever. And their step increases and, compounded increases. So, if there's a cost of living concern about people keeping pace, we're not doing it. And that was part of the discussion that started in 15, which led to the then mayor saying to Councilor Dowdle and Councilor Casper, can you put a committee together and work on this during 2016? And didn't get anything accomplished. And then another council member structure was put together to work on it for another year, and that's where we are now. So it's gone from 2000.
That's a good history. Thank you.
And people, are saying to me, as the HR guy and the finance guy, it's like, yeah, we know about the numbers, we know about the prices, we know about this and that. But it's like, why should the unions that we supervise continue to get raises, and it makes sense, but the managers don't? Now, if we're overpaid, and everybody thinks that, just tell us, you're overpaid, you're not gonna get any more raises, period. If they think that longevity is a bonus, it wasn't. Longevity was always supposed to be part of our pay, and it's included in our retirement pay.
The ironic thing is, the way to solve that is to move all of our managers to level 4, and they will get then an opportunity for pay increases, salary increases, and bonuses. But nobody wants to do that, obviously. So, that to me, that's the hardest part of it. And I think John Ruff's whole thing about, well, let's change level 4 too, is because he senses there's a huge difference between level 1 where he's at and level 4 where all the new people are going to be. So, oh, I'm sorry, John. Level,
I
okay.
just wanted to point out the way it's worded. It was level 4.
It is, it says all managers.
That was the only point I was making.
So, you know, again, from a
That's the history of it.
yes, and that's a good point. And the way to resolve it is to move all of our managers to level 4, but nobody wants to do that, of course. So, and part of I think part of the motivation to sweeten level 4 is because maybe people are afraid they might end up there someday, and they want to get the best possible deal they can get. But it all comes down to no matter what we can afford. You know, we can't afford a Cadillac package for everybody that increases our spending on salaries. We just can't do it. We already have
No
salaries.
proposal has ever been put forward to do that.
We already have salaries that are, you know, 115, 120, 150% above the state
the
average. We
attempt-
already have that.
The attempt has been made to create a greater level of fairness and to address the issue of movement from union to management so that there was an incentive. There was a point way back in a previous iteration that even tried to unify everything and break things down in terms of raises for everyone, in terms of cost of living and merit. That was abandoned. I won't go into why.
It being 5:29, I'm going to make a motion that we adjourn our finance and budget
Do you
committee.
move resolutions?
Not officially, so we should. So I move that we move those resolutions to the main agenda.
That would be 3-1. I think, are we moving 3-2 and 3-3 as well? Well, they're for initial consideration. They have to be introduced anyway, so it would just be 3-1.
Yeah.
That has to be so moved.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So I'll make a motion that we adjourn the finance and budget committee meeting.
Second.
Roll call.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So let's begin the meeting of the common council. We'll begin, please, with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Reed?
Present.
Counselor Armstrong?
Here.
Counselor Kelly?
Here.
Counselor Dowdle?
Here.
Counselor Ensel?
Here.
Counselor McFarland?
Here.
Counselor Kretzer?
Here.
Just a comment and a proclamation is, as you know, yesterday the request for proposals for Durkee Street became due, and I'm pleased to report that the Community Development Office report to me that there is at least one qualified proposal, and they'll be doing the various public process and vetting procedure as defined by the DRI in the next few days or a couple of weeks, and then obviously, since this is a council-driven process, be bringing those recommendations presumably to the council for your consideration. So I'm sure this is going to be very wonderful for the community to start moving into this discussion phase. And thank you all for your very hard work in making it happen. We know the very long journey that you took to get this far, and you all did an amazing job, so appreciate it.
I understood that we could file for an extension if we didn't get, a robust number of applications. Is that being considered?
Well, since at least one proposal was received, we have to follow through with the entire review process, just as if we had received 5.
Okay.
So we did receive one proposal, or?
Received 1.
Also have here a proclamation, whereas the government of Plattsburgh, New York celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. According to this United States Small Business Administration, there are currently 30.2 million small businesses in the United States. They represent 99.7% of all businesses. with employees in the United States and are responsible for 65.9% of net new jobs created from 2000 to 2017. And whereas small businesses employ 47.5% of the employees in the private sector in the United States, and whereas 90% of the consumers in the United States say Small Business Saturday has had a positive impact on their community, whereas 89% of consumers who are aware of Small Business Saturday say the day encourages them to shop small all year long, and whereas 73% of consumers who reportedly shop small at independent-owned retailers and restaurants on Small Business Saturday did so with friends and family, and whereas the most reported reason for consumers aware of the day to shop and dine at small independently owned businesses was to support their local community at 64%. And whereas Plattsburgh, New York supports our local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our communities. And whereas advocacy groups as well as public and private organizations across the country have endorsed this Saturday after Thanksgiving, as Small Business Saturday. Now therefore I, Mayor Colin Reed, do hereby proclaim November 24th, 2018 as Small Business Saturday, and urge the residents of our community and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. Thank you. That's it.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Common Council held on November 8th, 2018 are approved and placed on file among the public records of the City Clerk's office.
Moved by Councillor Kretzer, seconded by Councillor Dowdell. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the payrolls of the various departments of the City of Plattsburgh for the week ending November 14th, 2018 in the amount of $101,266.79 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby empowered and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councillor Kelly and seconded by Councillor Ensel. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. With your packet, you saw the weekly fire and ambulance response report and some minutes. Do we have any additional reports beginning with governance, strategy, and city operations? Councillor Kretzer?
I have no updates.
No updates.
City infrastructure, Councillor Ensel.
I have no updates at this time.
We may update that the portion we're doing of Main Road this year is coming to very near completion. Finance and budget, Councillor Kelly.
We just had our monthly meeting, and I'm not really sure what happened, but that was a good one. A lot of lively discussion.
Sorry, I missed it.
But it was all good discussion.
It was good.
It was good. No.
Public safety, Councillor Dowdell.
I have no updates. We'll be meeting next Tuesday, putting an agenda together before then.
And for that meeting, we will be rolling out the new public safety officer, who will be a parking enforcement officer, pardon me, who's been in training for this week, and will be issuing warnings next week. So we do want the public to be aware that there is a 2-hour time limit for much of the parking downtown, and to plan accordingly.
Do we know how long the warrant, just issuing the warnings will be?
I'm going to get more discussion from the chief on your Tuesday meeting, and he can fill you in on that. But there will be a warning period, and we're trying to also get the messages out to the media, because last thing we want to do is have anybody who believes that the law is no longer being applied to have any unpleasant surprise. So thank you for bringing
And
that
snow
up.
removal will also
That'll be coming up soon too, and that's one of their responsibilities as well.
Is, what's the form a warning would take, like a fake ticket?
Facsimile kind of a ticket, with the warning kind of written across it, something like that. They're working out. Plattsburgh Public Library, Councillor Armstrong.
No updates.
And MLD, Board President, Councillor McFarland.
No updates, but we are having our monthly committee meeting or board meeting on November 29th.
Resolved, the reports are, as listed, are hereby ordered received, and any written reports are placed on file among the public records of the City Clerk's office. Moved by Councillor Ensel and seconded by Councillor Kelly. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. No correspondences or recommendations from boards at this time. Please continue.
Resolved that the bills ordered by the Common Council for the week ending November 16th, 2018 in the amount of $987,603.88 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councilor Armstrong, second by Councilor Ensel, or pardon me, Dowdle. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Those of you in the public, there are agendas available just outside the door. We do invite any members of the public to come to speak to the council on any items on the agenda tonight if you wish. Seeing none, let's continue, please.
Motion to remove item 7A from the table.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Armstrong, second by Councilor Ensel.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
This is to remove from the table for
Right.
consideration.
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Discussion then of the item itself.
Well, as I said in the committee meeting, this is a previous version that has long since been withdrawn from our recommendation to the council. And so we hope that you will vote it down.
This was the one that Mike requested stay on so we could pair
Yes.
with the new one?
Yes.
And now, okay.
This was the original one.
This
was the original
The one I call 11-6.
Yes.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
We're voting on the resolution.
Oh, no.
No.
No, sorry.
Right.
Changed my vote. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
So,
No.
so Counselor Armstrong, did you say
No.
yes or no? Counselor Kelly?
No.
Counselor Dowdle?
No.
Counselor Ensel?
No.
Counselor McFarland?
No.
Counselor Kretzer?
No.
Motion's defeated. Motion to remove item 7B from the table.
I believe since,
This is actually a standalone,
Well,
I mean, it is a component of the employee handbook, but it's also a standalone resolution, so it's not necessarily tied into the handbook. It is tied into it, but it's not, doesn't, I'll stick with what I said in the first sentence.
Motion to remove item 7B from the table.
moved by Councilor McFarland, second by Councilor Kelly. All in favor to remove?
Aye.
Roll call.
Better do a roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
No.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
No.
Counselor Ensel?
No.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
No.
Motion is defeated. So it stays on the table. Motion to remove item 7C from the table.
Seeing none, please.
Can I ask a question prior to, I don't know if it's permissible to add just about, because the handbook that was distributed has the management compensation package included in it. So, okay, I just,
You could, depending on where that management compensation package lands, you could easily make, if and when you want to address that employee handbook, make it subject to whatever management comp resolution had been passed.
I guess I just question why is it included in a handbook? I don't know if there's really a need for it to be in the handbook, I guess.
I mean, from my perspective, to have a clearinghouse of the city's policies. I mean, there's other components to the handbook, but there's numerous appendixes or attachments to the handbook. And they include our procurement policy, a comp policy, email policy.
A one-stop shop?
Yep.
Thank you.
Seeing no action to remove from the table, remains on the table.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves a public forum be made available commencing November 24th for a period of 40 days at Trinity Park, providing free, equal, and unrestricted access for holiday displays. The maximum size is 10 by 10, and requests must be filed with the city clerk's office in advance. A $20 fee for electricity and certificate of insurance are required.
Moved by Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Kretzer. Discussion?
I guess I just have a question. Do we know if, do we know if the $20 electricity fee covers the actual expense?
Yeah.
Days, given their wattage, I assume
Oh, yeah, I'm
that's
just-
more than
okay.
sufficient to cover.
Just wanted to.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, this will allow anyone to come set up a 10 by 10 display on Trinity Park?
Yes.
It's been the practice for, what was it, the best,
So-
4 years?
4 or
Yeah.
5.
That was something that we agreed to upon the original request that a menorah be installed. And the council then decided that that opportunity should be given to anyone who so chose to put up a holiday commemoration.
And is there any overlay?
Nobody's ever applied for it except for one group.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay. And does each group that would apply, you have to pay the $20 electric fee?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Little history.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Hensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Crexler?
Yes.
No travel requests at this time. 2 items for initial consideration that I presume will remain up for initial consideration. Unless somebody would like to make a motion. Seeing none, any new business and council reports at this time?
I actually have one. I received an email from a constituent that was concerned about, and we permitted it, we approved it, that there was one nonprofit group that was permitted to do a coin drive in front of City Hall. They were of the belief that the official city policy of the city is only to have this from May through October, to October, and this event, I believe, was held in October, and that the only streets where it's permitted would be the corner of Beekman and Cornelia, at the corners by Georgia Pacific, and at the intersection Peru, Elizabeth, and South Platte Street. They were concerned about having the drive in front of City Hall.